Maybe something happened or
Was
she's
the
not feeling
pastor
well.
coming? Pastor? The pastor.
He can't make it.
Okay.
His 4-year-old granddaughter took precedence.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Today, because of the change in the political and physical environment, I've asked Jim here to come and give a talk on the very basic principles of safety. And Jim has been how many years with Roanoke now?
I'll start my 15th year in February.
Awesome.
As you can see, he's a former Marine, and he was a sniper. He is a certified instructor that I use. He and I have been
Known each other.
a long time working together. And I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate your time.
No problem.
And you,
Thank
and
you.
the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both for your service.
Yes.
What, to give you an idea of my background, I grew up here. I grew up in Roanoke. In '83, I joined the Marine Corps. 4 years of college money. I was going to get my college money. 26 years later is when I walked out of service. After that, I became a deputy for Roanoke. My wife and I and son moved back here. I became a deputy for Roanoke. 3 years after that, I became the marshal. So since 2011, I've been the marshal. My military experience, so you guys know where I'm coming from, I spent 13 years as a scout sniper for the Marine Corps, and I also spent another 13 years up at the Air Base as a police officer on the Air Base side. I've done bodyguard work all over the world. I've done drug interdiction down in Venezuela. I was bodyguard for the SOUTHCOM commander, who's in charge of all the South American troops, U.S. troops. I've been deployed overseas several times. I've been over to 36 different countries in the world. My last deployment was in and out of Afghanistan. We moved here. My wife and I live just 5 miles over here from you guys, over on 1,000 North and 300 West. I'm a certified instructor as a firearms instructor for the NRA, also certified instructor for the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. I'm one of their guest instructors. I teach active shooter for law enforcement and civilians, and this is more of a questions and answers for you, and then I'm going to just give suggestions. What you guys do is what you guys do. And there's one of my former teachers. So I grew up in this community, so I really enjoy this community. So the biggest premise is, especially with the terrorism, and we're just not talking Al-Qaeda or ISIS or anything like that, is the small churches are prime targets, if you want to put it that way, because there isn't the mindset. We're in Roanoke, Indiana. Nothing's going to happen here. Absolutely nothing. We call it Mayberry. The joke for our office is we call it Mayberry, and I love it because it is a bedroom and retirement community. But, and you're not going to have some terrorist group roll up out here and take the church. It's not going to happen. What's going to happen is it's going to be one of your parishioners. Unfortunately, it'll be a parishioner who gets upset, or it'll be someone associated with that parishioner that they're upset with. And they're coming to extract their revenge or their justice to that individual. And there's going to be a lot of times I'm going to refer to Brent, and I'm going to make Brent the bad guy. But if Brent got upset with the church itself and thought that the church or someone in the church did him wrong, what better place to come to get your revenge. You saw it in Texas, and they're just not the Christian churches. We've had assaults on the mosques, we've had assaults on the temples, the Jewish temples, and the Christian churches. And the latest one that we had was probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, was the mosque that was overseas, and the guy live streamed it when he did the attack. And it was at the time of their prayer, and he literally walked in with like 6 guns, and when they ran out of ammunition, he dumped them. And he just went for the next one. It was to the point he went back out to his car, got more guns, and went back in to continue to kill. What upset me as an individual and as a law enforcement officer and as former military is that nobody confronted this guy. Absolutely nobody. One of the shots is he walks out and there's a car sitting there and you can see 2 people in the car running. And he literally walked in front of them, got more guns, and walked back in front of them, and then he drove away. I mean, he went back inside to continue to kill, and they drove away. Why didn't someone, whoever was in that driver's seat, why did they not run him over? All bets are off when the gun starts going. What we train for, law enforcement trains for, is, this is something I want you to understand. It's something here if were to happen. When we get the call, we're all going to come. I don't care if you're county, state, Andrews, Markle, Whitley County, we're all going to run to the gun. We all run to the sound of the gun. And it sounds bad, we have one job, and one job only. And that is to kill the individual who is shooting people. That's our job as law enforcement at that point. We are there to stop the killing. And the easiest way to do it is to stop the individual. We're not going to negotiate, we're not going to talk. We are there for one specific reason. And a lot of people don't realize that, because especially in the climate we are today, hey, we're going to talk, and So, your church here, Christmas Eve, you said you had 130. Can you imagine upstairs, he's come in, or they come in, he or she, and has shot 6 or 7 or 8 people. Law enforcement comes, surrounds the building, and wants to talk to this individual, and they continue to shoot. It's Columbine, and that's exactly what happened. After Columbine, the high school, law enforcement completely changed, because that's what they did. Their policy was to contain the area, get the SWAT team in, come in and negotiate, and get people out. The students at Columbine, that's not what they were there for. They were to get the biggest body count that they could. So while SWAT was around and securing the area, they're inside shooting people. And it's all on video. So, right after that, all law enforcement changed. The schools, Roanoke schools, if something were to happen there, and it used to be the law enforcement side was 1 is none, 2 is 1. That's what we teach everybody. So, I would never go into a building by myself. I would wait for Brent. If he's my backup officer, Brent, then the 2 of us would go in. It's not anymore. You run to the sound of the gun. I will be the first one at the Roanoke school. I will be the first one clearing hallways. My backup catches up. That's the term we use now. Your backup catches up. Because we cannot wait, or you cannot wait for me to get the state troopers here and their SWAT team and everything else, because people are getting shot. So, I want you to understand our mindset now, law enforcement's mindset. The biggest deterrent is you guys, especially you that are here this morning. You know your people. I don't know the day in and day out of the people in your church. You can tell when somebody's off that day. You can. And especially you ladies. You can do it better than us men. You truly can. You have that sixth sense. Something is just not right. The other thing you need to look for is the person who's never been here before. You know everybody in your church. Whether you like them or not, you know everybody. Do they belong here? I see that, I'm not sure what's on the backside, but you have two main entrances. You have the entrance to come down here off the parking lot, and you have the entrance.
We
out.
have a camera back here on that back entrance.
When church happens, when you guys have church on Sunday, does everybody use basically the same entrance?
Pretty much, everybody comes in the
Yeah.
front.
Usually
everybody walks
the
out
main.
front. Yeah.
Because I keep these two sides, unless there's a special event that requires, you know,
Right.
down here, both of these sides remain locked.
That's what it should be. They should be exit, not entry only during church. Because you want to funnel, sounds bad, but you want to funnel everybody through the same one. So, and your greeters are the people who have the most important job, because they're going to look and they're going to know the people coming into the church. So if something is off, how many greeters do you guys normally have? One or two? Two greeters. So if somebody comes in and it just doesn't feel right, one of the greeters can take them off to the side and talk to them and see how they're doing. And you don't interrogate them, just, hey, how are you doing? Another thing that works great is when they come up, and you guys, I know it's COVID, but do you still greet with handshakes? Yes. When somebody doesn't want to shake your hand, that's an indicator that there's something wrong. And I do understand COVID, but the psychological aspect of the shooter is he wants no contact, especially physical contact with him, and he's angry. They're angry. And I keep saying he because 99.9% of the shooters are males. You ladies do, you know, you burn stuff down, you poison people. I mean, that's how you, I'm being serious, that's how you kill people. We get angry, we take guns and we shoot things up or stab. Males do. Ladies are a lot more devious when it comes to that. But, so if somebody comes up and you offer your hand to them and you can tell they're a little bit off, if you can get them separated just a little bit and talk to, and just that human contact could stop everything that they had planned. They did a study, the FBI did a study, and all of my stuff reflects back to law enforcement and the military. But they did a study with known police officer killers. These guys were in prison for life and or on death row. And they went around and asked them what it was that triggered them to shoot law enforcement. And the one that really stands out for me was an individual who had shot 3 other police officers at that time. And what he would do is he would go out onto the highway and speed and get pulled over on purpose. And when the officer would come up, that's when he would shoot the officer. Well, in the records, it showed that the day before he got caught, he'd been stopped by a police officer and received a warning citation for speeding and didn't shoot the officer. And they asked him, why? If that was your MO and that's how you did things, why didn't you shoot that officer? Because he was polite to me. And that officer lived because when he approached the car, he was polite to the driver. He said most of the times the officers had attitudes, and that's the reason I shot them. So our guys, it's when we do a traffic stop, it's, you know, my name's Officer Wood, I'm with the Roanoke Police Department. The reason I stopped you is because of your speed. Is there an emergency? That's my tagline. I use it all the time, thanks to my wife. She taught me that. So I used to say, is there a reason for your speeding? Or do you know why I stopped you? And my wife would say, no, I don't know why you stopped me. I'm in a hurry. So I changed everything, and that's what I use now. And the nice thing about it, I asked if there's an emergency, and I had 2 nurses say, what? Is there an emergency? You know, you're the first officer who's ever asked me if there's an emergency. Because nurses, we know they're nurses because of their license plates. So the human contact, the interaction with somebody, that may stop the plan altogether. You may not, he may come, again, I'm back to using he may come to this church to do harm, but just because one of the greeters stopped, hey, how you doing? Put his hand out, you know, glad to see you're here, hope, hope this helps you or whatever. That in itself just may stop it. And you may never know. You may never know. Or you can get them to decide, and as you talk to them, and I'm not telling everybody to try to be a therapist, but if you can see something's off, then you may go get somebody else to help you. Hey, can you wait here just a minute? Or, hey, are you thirsty? Would you like a drink? Bring them, isolate them, bring them down here, get them a cup of coffee or something, but let somebody else know that just there's something off. In the summer or spring, somebody comes in with the trench coat on. They're not dressed for what the weather is. That's another huge indicator. As they walk in and they've got the parka on, what they're doing, they're just trying to hide stuff. Or the guy comes in with a backpack. I have rifles that can go in a briefcase. I mean, it's very easy. Go ahead.
I attended a safety thing at one of the churches in Huntington. Terry Stuffle and some of his officers put it on. And Terry Stuffle had a backpack that he brought in, and after about halfway through it, he gets in this backpack and puts a gun together.
That was my gun.
Oh, was it your gun?
One of my guns, yeah.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I'll never forget that, so.
And unfortunately, this stuff goes in waves. I was really surprised when Brent asked me to come out and talk to you guys because we're on the downslope of the wave, so to speak. We haven't, because of COVID, we haven't had a lot of people together. As COVID lifts and we get more and more people together, and we get how can I put this? The lack of respect for law enforcement and individuals, this is going to rise back up again. So we're down here at the bottom, and you're going to see it peak again. It'll start to peak again, especially when gatherings. People start gathering again. And it just can't be the church. I mean, you have to be aware of everywhere. Ronald, I mean, it seems like every time we turn around, we're having some type of festival or some type of art thing or the car show. And I love it because that is what Ronald gives. But they're nightmares for me and my officers because now it's thinking of security. And we plan for the worst case scenario because that's the only way to do it. Okay, I've been talking here for probably the last 15, 20 minutes. Do I have anybody have any questions? And that's a lot of what this is going to be, is questions and answers.
Not yet.
Not yet?
I have a question, just in general,
Yeah.
like for police officers in general. Have you changed some of the things that you've done because of what the climate of the world now as far as to protect yourselves?
What's sad is since I came on law enforcement, it's been, if you want to call it a target, it's been an ever-moving target. When I first came on, it was truly Mayberry. I mean, I get in the car, I drive around, come back, we get my neighbor's dog's been barking to, so-and-so hasn't mowed their grass, or they haven't taken their trash cans in. And those are literally the three biggest things I had to worry about. And what I think is so funny about Roanoke, because it is Mayberry, that those wouldn't even be considered anything in Huntington, especially Fort White, Indianapolis. And so to answer your question, yes, things have changed. The biggest thing was how to respond to an active shooter for law enforcement. One was none, two is one. Now it's your backup, it's your catch-up, because you cannot wait. I taught a class strictly for law enforcement, and after I got done, I had that sheriff contact me and ask me what I told his, and it was for reserve officers. What did I teach? What do you mean? actually said in my class. He said, I've had 2 reserve officers quit after your class. Okay, and I wouldn't talk to him. The thing was they couldn't, they wanted to, their mindset was Barney. And it's the easiest way, I can use that term and everybody knows what I'm talking about. Their mindset was Barney. Hey, I'm here to have a good time, I'm here, I get a badge, I get to, I get to wear the uniform, da-da-da-da-da. After my class, it was, I may have to go shoot someone? Yes, that's the reason you're there. When it's all said and done with, that's the reason you're there. We are the insurance policy for the community. That's what we get a paycheck for. And they didn't have, it was like, well, I don't think I can do that. And especially, so when I teach law enforcement on an active shooter, and it would just be like this church. So we walk in the door, and the 2 of you have been shot, and you're the greeters, and you're shot, and you're laying up front. We're stepping over you. We are literally going to step over you. You could, if you grab the hold of me, and this is the hardest thing for me, female, male, you grab a hold of my leg and screaming and asking for help, and I yank away from you, and I continue to walk away from you. That's the mindset that these guys couldn't wrap around. Because they're there to help. At that point, you have one job. School. Can you imagine? School teacher. Can you imagine your students on the ground bleeding, and you look up and law enforcement stepping over them, not providing aid? Because that's not our job at that moment. After the threat is taken care of, then we come back. And literally, that was Brett's job, that's Rowan's job, that's the fire department's job, that's everybody who comes in after us. So yes, the mindset has changed. And I don't know if it's for the better or for the worse. Because I teach stops, I teach traffic stops as well. One of the things that I teach my officers is before you ever get out of the car and you approach the vehicle, you figure out 3 ways to shoot that vehicle, that driver. We have to. 2 most dangerous things for law enforcement: domestic violence cases and traffic stops. Those are our 2 most dangerous things to walk into. Because we control none of it, and we have no idea what the players are about. And it's sad to say, but you have to have that mindset. And if you don't have the mindset, or get yourself put into that mindset, all I want to do is shoot my gun at anybody. I've been very fortunate here. I've drawn my gun twice in 14 years as a police officer. I don't ever want to do that. That's not what I'm here for. I should say, that is what I'm here for, but that's not what I want to do. But you still have to have it in the back of your mind. The other thing is, it used to be, people would come up to you, hey, how you doing? Want to shake your hands? Now it's like, no, don't shake my hand for 2 reasons. One, I don't want you to have contact with me because of COVID or anything else, especially flu season. And 2, we get a lot of traffic off 24. We don't know who that is. We don't know what they want to do. They've got, something against law enforcement. I used to eat at Elmo's almost every day. I don't eat there. Just because of the fact that I've had people, and it's funny, I have people, hey Jim, how you doing? Or, somebody wants to buy my drink for me. To people who would just randomly come up and just be hateful and run. But they're not from Rome. They're traveling through. Did I answer your question? Long-winded, but did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes, it's an ever-changing target for us, so to speak, or movement. And training this year, for law enforcement, we have to have 24 hours of training a year. 2 hours has to be in firearms, 2 hours have to be in our vehicle, for our vehicle driving, and 2 hours has to be in physical tactics, hand-to-hand. This year, they mandated 1 hour of de-escalation training. Not that we maybe didn't need it, but they made it mandatory, 1 hour de-escalation training. And when you see a cop, not just because I'm one up here saying, tell him thank you, because of the fact that we get, if I could go through the whole shift without having to stop somebody or go to somebody's house, we just don't randomly roll up to your house and knock on the door and go in and say, what's going on? We're coming because we were called from someone. But that's some of the, and that's, we see that attitude more and more now. We owe you something attitude, or why are you here bothering me? Someone called for a reason. We're seeing that a lot. And in Roanoke. And the attitude of the kids. I've had kids talk to me like a sailor would talk to me, or another Marine would talk to me. And that just, I use foul language. I especially don't use foul language in mixed company. I shouldn't say I don't use foul language. I will never say foul language in mixed company. And especially to an adult. And I just stand there looking at, who do you think you're talking to? And not that I'm in uniform, it's that I'm an adult.
Just the lack of respect.
Just the lack, that's what it is, it's the lack of respect. And you can attest to this, because I'm sure you started seeing it at the end of your career in teaching, was the lack of respect for themselves.
Yep.
And if you don't respect yourself, you don't respect anyone else around you. I mean, when I went through Riverview, there was no way I would have used any language that's used on the street now. Because and unfortunately, the community and the parents have taken that away from the teachers. My mother-in-law is Rebecca Barlow, and she was Washington Center's principal. And we sat down and we talked, and over the years, as her being principal, less and less ability to correct the child, and we get Roanoke probably. I just did I'm going back and forth on stuff for you guys, so that you know, because you're in the community. Last year we did 1,582 calls for service. That's how many times we got dispatched somewhere in a year's time. Out of that, if you take a week, I can't say the majority, but quite a few of those calls were us, law enforcement, being parents. Believe it or not, so-and-so doesn't want to get up and go to school. I can't get her out of bed, or I can't get him out of bed to go to school. So-and-so won't listen to me, they won't clean up their room. So-and-so won't do their homework. So-and-so disrespects me. Those are seriously the calls that we get. And that's in Roanoke. Can you imagine Fort Wayne, Huntington? And because there's two reasons. One, parents don't want to be parents. And the parents that do want to be parents are afraid of us because, well, I'll just call law enforcement. I'll just call 911 because you're abusing me. Well, in the state, and then they get the lecture of, well, in the state of Indiana, corporal punishment is still legal. And as long as the parent doesn't enjoy striking you on your bottom with an overhand, to me, they're being a good parent. Well, I'll just call 911. And I told this one young man, who do you think's going to show back up? It's going to be me. Well, okay. But they think they can literally get away with anything they want. Or we have gotten the calls from the child. Mom and Dad stole my cell phone.
Oh my gosh.
Or took my iPad. They don't own that iPad. It's mine. They took it. I mean, I'm serious. Those are some of the calls that we've got. But, and this all goes back to the church and active shooter. That's the generations we're dealing with. You took my pen. You took my car. I didn't either. I'm the one who bought it. It's mine. I'm allowing you to use it. But it's like, that's what we're coming into. Your church, that's the generations that are coming up through. I want it now. They don't care if it's for me, instant gratification, I want it now. And I could care less how it affects anyone else. So those, unfortunately, are the people that are going to come into the church. It's the guy who was dating the young lady who dad said, "You're a POS, and I don't want you around my daughter anymore." Well, he's going to come and get revenge on dad. Or the young lady who, dad and mom are always mean to me. You know, there's three sides to every story. There's their side, this A side, B side, and what actually happened here in the middle. But the angry person gets, you know, so to speak, manipulated into it, and they come on in, or you've got the child who has tried to get help, but nobody wants to listen to them. And they're to the point of, this is the only way I can get help. But to tie a lot of this, especially for your church, is use the one entrance, like you guys are doing. Use the one entrance. See, make eye contact with everybody who comes in. You know, you're going to know who doesn't belong here. You're going to know if they belong here, if they're having an off day. And all it may take, and I'm not saying just because they're having an off day, they're going to come in and shoot everybody. I'm saying that's not what this is about either. It's if they are having an off day, that's what you're here for the church for. It's a community in a community. You may sit down and help them. Your life experience may get them through their rough times. Okay? Anything else? I mean, more questions?
When you come into a building in an emergency situation, how do you tell which one's the
Good guy and bad guy?
good guy with the gun or the bad guy with the
Okay.
gun?
When I walk in the door, everybody's a bad guy.
Everybody.
Everybody. And that, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So I know Brent's going to be armed. I know Brent. But the state trooper who's rolling over here doesn't know Brent. Or the new game warden that we just got in the county doesn't know Brent. And the descriptions we get, so I'm going to roll this for you this way. I'll try to explain this for you this way. So there's an incident here. Man with a gun. No shooting, just man with a gun. You call 911, okay? And you're our 911 operator. You're nervous because there's a man with a gun. And you're feeding all this information to her. Well, her job is to get the information to me as quick as I can. Okay? The telephone game. And truly, that's what it is. You give the exact description of Brent sitting over here. Blue jeans, black shirt, gray jacket, and a black hat with writing across the top of it. White male. That's what you give to dispatch. Yeah. When you call it out, active shooter. Me as a police officer, active shooter. That's the first thing I hear is active shooter. You give you give the location. The breakdown doesn't happen with you. The breakdown happens between you and I. And the breakdown is you're excited it's an active shooter. I'm excited. And when I say excited, I don't mean, oh great, it's an active shooter. It's an active shooter. You start giving the description out, all I hear is male, white, gun. That's all I hear. Clothing description, I'm not going to worry about until I get here. All I hear is male, white with a gun. So we roll up your security for the church, and I see a gun in your hand. What's unfortunate, remember what I told you what my job is? And let's just say shots are fired. What my job is to stop the threat. You've got to have you've got to have the knowledge and the cognizance thinking of when you see us rolling up, you need to drop that gun and get your hands up. Because the communications we have here, I'm looking for a male white with a gun who's been shooting people in the church. And you could have already shot the bad guy and he's over here in the corner. We don't know. We don't know that. So when law enforcement rolls in, everybody's a bad guy, male, female, child, we don't care until we get the situation in control. And the first person on the scene, so you get this, well, I'm in charge, nobody in this church is in charge of anything. And I'll revert that back to the school, especially with principals. That's her world up there. Like she's responsible for every living soul in that building until we walk in. And I don't care who you are. If I'm the first officer on the scene, that scene is mine. And I've got all the toys to back mine up, which you have not. And I have the law on my side as well. So, if something were to happen, and as soon as law enforcement starts to roll in, you see us, you need to drop whatever you've got, show us your hands. And that's what you get, that's the command you're going to hear from us. Show us your hands, show us your hands, show us your hands. And then you're going to get on the ground, you're going to get your hands put behind you, and you're going to get put in handcuffs. That is if we know we've stopped the active shooter. And then we'll sort everything out at the end. Don't get upset with the police officer. Which you will, because we're not going to be nice when we put you on the ground. We're not. We can't. We don't have the time. There's things that you need to do for the church. It's run, hide, and fight. Those are the three things you need to remember if you're in this church and something happens. If you have a way to escape, escape. Period. I'm assuming husband and wife? Okay, good assumption. Something happens, let's go hunting. He says no, you need to go. And I'm saying this because you're husband and wife. If something's going on and you go and she says no, you go. It sounds terrible. But if not, if I'm the shooter, I've got two instead of one. All right? So, your people in the church, when you say, we've got to go, and somebody says, no, I'm going to, don't even listen to the end of the sentence. Either you're a survivor in a situation like that, or you're a casualty. Period. That's it. Now, the individuals who are carrying guns are going to act as security. That's something totally different. Brent is going to stand his ground. I would stand my ground at our church. But I don't expect my son to stand his ground, and I do not expect my wife to stand her ground.
What church do you attend?
Presbyterian in Huntington. So, run's the first one. And when I say run, it's just not outside the building. Get away. Is that the farmhouse back here? Is that part of the church?
No.
Okay. Go to it. It doesn't matter. Go to the farmhouse. Go to the cemetery.
Actually, we have a parishioner that lives right down in Amy.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
And that's
get away from
that's
everything.
supposed to be our meeting.
Yeah. And don't hop in your car. Don't go. That's the reason God gave us these little two things on the end of our legs. That's where you want to go. Because, this is my mindset, if I'm the bad guy, and you have vehicles parked here, hop in any one of them because I've just created more casualties. Because I'm going to booby trap every car that's out there that I can. I'm devious with it. That's what I used to do. So, run and get as far away as you can. Get as far away from the building as you can. Okay? If you can't run, you need to hide. Hide anywhere you can. And the other thing I want you to understand is, okay, so you hide. If you're found, then you have to have the mindset you're going to fight. If you're not going to fight, I'm going to just put a bullet in you, and I'm going to move to the next person. Okay? One of the neat things, Alice, did you guys have Alice? Were you guys working with Alice, in Alice training at the school?
Did I?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's called Alice, but we got a lot of training.
Okay. There's an institute it's called Alice now. One of the neat things you guys can do is, you've got all have hymnals, don't you, in the pews? It's really hard to concentrate and shoot when somebody's throwing hymnals at you. When you have 130 hymnals coming at you at one time. And I'm serious. One of the things that we do for law enforcement, I've got the Nerf balls. So as they're shooting, I'm throwing Nerf balls at them. I want to distract them. I'm distracting our officers to make them so they shoot back. To learn to ignore that extraction of me hitting them in the back of the head with a Nerf ball. But the same principle works here. You can't do a whole lot and acquire and target if you have stuff flying at you. It's human nature. It's uncontrollable. You start to move to get away from getting stuff thrown at you. So it's hide, run, and fight. That's the principle in an active shooter scenario or anywhere. Hide, run, and fight. And when I say fight, that's exactly what you do. It's not Kingsbury rules. It's you're in a fight for your life, and that's the way you got to act. For you ladies, just imagine they're going to harm one of your children or one of your loved ones. I mean, that's the attitude. You need to go in with the mama bear attitude, seriously. And guys, just because he's bigger doesn't mean you can't take him down. You know? Or don't think because you're bigger, you're going to be able to do something. You go in with the attitude, you're going to hurt him. It's not, well, let's have a conversation. No. You have to have the same attitude if we're going to have this attitude. Okay. I'll ask this question after we're done taping, because this is a question I want to ask, but I don't want it on a video for everybody to see, because it's a personal question. Any other questions? Brent, I know you're full of them. Not that you're full of them.
It's full of something, yeah, it's full of something.
Do you ever worry about being
Brent?
wrong?
I have a question.
It is. There's a lot to soak in.
Okay. The question was, do I ever worry about
It
being
could be
wrong?
me. If I were gonna do something, I'd say, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should do it.
Right, and that is there. I mean, so that's something that morally you're going to have to deal with, okay? And it's an old cliche, would you rather be judged by 12 or carried by 6? Okay, and inaction is just as bad as action. I mean, it's a two-edged sword. So you not doing anything, and I'm not telling you, I can't make that call for you. No one in this room, on this earth, can make that call for you. That's a call you have to make for yourself. And anybody who judges you because you didn't do anything and weren't here or where you were at, they have nothing, so it's a moral call that you have to make.
I imagine in your life that you were him, and I suppose
Right.
things would change too.
Yes.
Your thinking would change maybe.
Exactly, but there are those that would say, no. I would much rather it be me. And I've had those people in the audience. I choose not to do that. Okay, that's your choice. It's not a choice I can make for you. It's not a choice you can make for. It's a choice that you have to make for yourself. And I'm not gonna think any more or any less from you. There are times when I see stuff on the video clips of law enforcement, and I'm like, why did you not do that? But I'm armchair quarterback. I wasn't there. So that's a choice you yourself are going to have to make. I could stand up here and I could take you out and show you how to shoot and hit and roll and do all the neat high and low drag stuff that you could do. And when it comes down to it, you're just like, no, I'm not going to do it. So.
It took me 3 months from the time that I was put in this position till I started carrying. I had to do a lot of searching. But what it finally came down to, what if, and I had the skill to prevent something, and I didn't.
Yeah. But
That's what I have to live with.
yeah, and that's your moral code. And I'm not saying anything wrong about yours, don't get me wrong, but it's an individual fact. And your position is the security of the church, correct? And if you couldn't accept that responsibility, then Brent would have stepped back and went, I can't do this. You're going to have to find somebody else. Because I know you. I've known you for years. So, yes, it's something that you yourself have to make that choice.
I think it was way back in the beginning. It started when I became a fireman,
Mm-hmm.
then progressed into as an EMT. Well, that street experience is what put me in this position, right, wrong, or indifferent. I can't say no.
So,
But at the same time, it goes back for many years at the fire station, down on the wall beside the bulletin board, we had a saying posted. And it said, failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
so that's going to be your, and you may find that you are the whirlwind when it happens. I've dealt with ladies that I taught through the years through the military, and it's like, yeah, they'll never fit. Okay. And when it comes down to it, it's like, you're going to have to be by my side anytime. Because we used to teach hand to hand. And I had a little incident. At first you're like, yeah, no, this is, and she became one of my instructors. And I had helped me teach. So, it just,
I think if somebody was coming right at me, I think that'd be a different story. But, you hear these things on TV, where the cops are always getting blamed for everything, whether they're right or wrong or indifferent. You know what I mean? It's like, and I look at these people, I think, how did they make a decision? Because they're going to get it. Some of these cases on TV where they're getting...
we're back to, we make the decision at that moment. If we were to step back and go, I don't know if that's, and don't get me wrong, there are cops that make bad decisions every day. They do. And there's the 10% in every community, and we have ours. And, but you really don't, at that moment, as law enforcement, the fights that I've been in, I'm not thinking, well, this is going to hurt me down the road, because you can't. Or the
It's
actions,
your life or theirs.
yeah, or the actions that I'm taking right now, you don't. And once you do start questioning that on a daily basis, then it's time for you to retire. And we're losing law enforcement left and right because of, well, if I do this, I could lose my pension, I could go to jail, I could lose my pension, everything. In record number, law enforcement are retiring to do something else. I'm 57 now. I've told my wife at 60. And or when you tell me that I can stop, I'm done financially for retirement. And it's because and it's not because I don't love the job. I love the job. I can think of doing nothing else right at the moment. But I'm getting older. I did 26 years in the military, all over the world. I've been stabbed twice. That was part of the job, but never injured. January 1st of last year, US 24, 114, slide off. A young lady was driving a car, slid her car off the road. I walked around the front of my squad car, planted my foot on the only piece of dry pavement, and tore the meniscus in my right knee, which in turn was surgery and 2 months worth of rehab for walking around the front of my car. I've been in 2 helicopters that have crashed. I walked around the front of my car. When I'm in uniform, I have an additional about 55 pounds on me with my vest and my duty belt. And my foot planted and I turned and tore the meniscus in my knee. And the typical male, oh, I just straightened that. A little Motrin, I'll be good. That Sunday, I'm walking across, my knee was hurting, so I didn't go to church. I was walking across our living room floor, and when I came to on the floor with my dog next to me, with my knee curled up into my chest going, what the heck was that? It was time to get looked at. So, I can't answer, and you say, well, if they're coming at you, I bet, I would lay money on it, that it wouldn't be you. If they were coming at you, you've made that decision. If they're coming at someone else, especially a child, you're going to come unglued. I'll lay money on it. It's not the harm that happens to us. It's the harm that's happening to someone else that we're witnessing is what's going to make that decision. Any other questions?
I just had one for
Yeah.
Brad. Are you aware of our parishioners or other security people
Well,
who
hold
are...
right there. I think I know where you're going with this.
Okay,
And I don't want it on that.
okay, sorry.
No, and I could care less. I just don't want it on here, because that's one of the questions I was